everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Allison Rouse, author of We've Got Tonight, The Life and Times of, and these other little books right here. Where you can get that, hit that link tree down in the description, and you can see my merchandise. I don't know why the hell I just did that. That's supposed to be for the end of the video, which I feel like I really ended the last one kind of awkwardly, so I'm sorry. Because I'm going to be posting this right after the first one because we're going to be doing the second reading today. And as always, I just always like to start by being thankful for you guys, for the family here, for the amazing women, for the amazing men, for all the kindness and stories and all the conversations we're having, not just with me, but with everybody here. So if you're new to the channel, don't be shy. Go down in the comments, join the conversation. You're going to meet a lot of really, really cool people because the family here is just so amazing and everybody's so cool, so kind. And truly from the bottom of my heart, it means the world to me. So thank you, everybody, as always. And as always, well, as last episode, we started out reading my first version of the second book I'm writing, titled And She Was. So today we are going to finish reading some of the characters, and then we're going to read the first few pages of this book. So we're also going to finish up our little stouty stout here, our little whiskey stout, Boulevard Brewery out of Kansas City. Really good, just year-round. Nice balance on the age. Like, I like it when Firestone Parabola or Bourbon County comes out and I can age them a little bit and the whiskey, the flavors just kind of get a little more bold. But I don't always want that. So this is your perfect everyday, year-round go-to whiskey stout. Absolutely delicious. So, okay, let's get into reading some more. So let's grab your stouts, kick up your feet, and have some And She Was cocktails and rocktails. Cheers, big ears. I was happy to swallow that over Kip Winger any day. You know I am. Okay, so we're going to start this off with reading about Jonesy's mother. Well, let's go. Yeah, we'll read about Jonesy's mother. Because Jonesy James's mother does, you know, if you watch the first video, the character creation that I have, she leaves younger because she knew the dad and they weren't ever really married, but they had an affair. They stayed together and they were enjoying each other's company. And then one day she just takes up and leaves. And it's kind of based on Steve Jones's history, basically. So, all right. Betina and Elisa Maria Romany St. Jones, long godmother to Jonesy James, world's most famous rock star and notorious bachelor. A beautifully gypsy who met a wealthy man and... What am I trying to say there? Met a wealthy man and fell head over heels in love. She went to work in his home, but once banished from the house by the master's wife after learning of the affair. Betina and her mother Grazia traveled along in a gypsy caravan with her maternal grandparents. She was half rejected and half adored for her beauty because it would be a commodity in arranging, hopefully, a new marriage. She runs away to London from the family camp at the age of 16 after meeting the man she was arranged to marry the next day. Betina arrives in London with a charm given by her mother and a stolen dowry of £200. Using her beauty, she finds a place to live with a struggling artist and becomes his muse and subject. She meets Hugo after leaving the artist when she stepped into a small fish and chip shop to escape the rain. She was working as an independent escort and stopped by the fish and chip shop after a particularly bad day at a client's. Why did I write that? I'm going to change that. I don't see her being that. So I'll probably change that. Okay. Her dark-haired, blue-eyed beauty took him in immediately. And this is not based on me. This is other women that I've seen from history. You know, like you have Sultana. I mean, just She's kind of more of a Sade. Because that's who I was kind of thinking of when I wrote this. Okay. Her dark-haired, blue-eyed beauty took Hugo immediately. Always ambitious, she planned to marry the shy yet wealthy Hugo and live indulgently for the rest of her life. Never wanting to be a mother when she gave birth to her son, James, she felt dead, livid for taking away her independence. Her anger towards the baby became apparent when Hugo came home to her smothering him. He paid her a handsome sum to leave and never look back. Being greedy and selfish, she took it and went to the Catalonia area in Spain for most of her life, where she habitually married and divorced wealthy men like it was her career. So again, this is kind of based a little bit more elaborately on Steve Jones's mother. And like I said, this was all written before his biography, Lonely Boy, came out and before Pistol came out on Hulu. So this is just kind of things that I knew about him. And I kind of borrowed from him and a couple other musicians. So for this kind of background for her. So she's an amalgamation of a few people's mothers, but mostly Steve Jones's. Okay. Often settling for the paltry divorce settlements, Betina never really found a place of her own and wasted the money from husbands past, living more luxurious than she could afford. After many years of husband hopping, her looks began to fade. Her reputation as a money-hungry black widow preceded her, and the fact the wealthy men she knew, all women wanted younger wives, and left a once vibrantly cunning woman out in the cold. And the black widow thing, that has nothing to do with anything besides, like there's that black widows is just a term for women who can be deadly to men. Because we all watch, a bunch of us fall asleep to crime shows. Yeah, I do. Be afraid. Anyway, maybe that's where all this shit's coming from. Because with some of this stuff previously in the other video, I was like, what the hell am I talking about? Holy cow. I've kind of really haven't made this the happiest novel, have I? But it doesn't have to be, because life is never a happy novel. All right. Let's see, where am I? Bettina could no longer charm the men she needed to survive, but one man could never turn her away. She was sure of it. Her son, James. She didn't know where to find him or what he would even look like, but she knew that the house would always be in the St. Jones family. Facing homelessness and poverty, she went to the one house she knew could not turn her away. Just 2 years before Jonesy's issues, she found out his fame and fortune and used her mommy charm to siphon his money. His little bitch on again wife saw through her charade, and Betina was a constant thorn in her son's marriage. She didn't care as long as her son filled her bank account. At one point facing certain poverty, because there's things I don't want to tell you what's going to happen in this book. You can probably already guess. Go down in the comments. Yeah, tell me what you think down in the comments. Okay. Just, she found out his fame and fortune. Okay. After facing a certain poverty-filled future, due to a complete blackout, she makes up the lie that would bring down his wife. Being his mother, she sues for a portion of the estate. Again, that is based really pretty much on kind of the attitude of Steve Jones's mom. She was treated him disposable, used him as a shoplifting aid, let the stepdad do bad things to Steve. So that's kind of, and it's not necessarily just Steve Jones's mother. There's a lot of women out there like that. There's a lot of parents out there like that, male, female, whatever. They just, so I kind of want, there has to be that nemesis in this book, and she's one of the nemesises. Okay. Cousin Petey, which is based on one of my good friends. Real name, and I've talked about Cousin Petey before because he helped make up the band game, moniker, which ended up in some line in some song about never cared for games they play. All right. Anyway, cousin Petey, real name Peter Smith, Peter Fensel Smith, lifelong friend of Shayna Stevens and tour manager for her band Nancy Pants. The youngest son of 5 children, he grew up in the same town that Shayna did. She and Petey were like brother and sister, 2 troublemakers that would run around the neighborhood ringing doorbells and running away. In some cases, they would sell vodka-laced lemonade at a stand they put on the corner between their homes. Not to children, of course, but to adults only. They could jacket the prices that way. Mostly the housewives who didn't want their mediocre husbands to know they drank their boredom away thanks to the neighborhood terror twins. Petey was the one person Shayna stayed in touch with after she ran away from their small town. He joined her in New York City a year later. Petey is an adventurous, ADD-inflicted boy who can talk his way into and through any situation but enjoys the pretense of upper crust. It's totally cousin Petey. Educated in both business and tech, he made a great early multi-purpose employee as only roadie and temporary band manager. He began his career with the band because he was smart and smooth in his dealings, but also knew how to skim a buck or two off the top. As tour manager after Nancy Pants's rise, Petey enjoyed the excesses of rock and roll life along with the rest of the band, but kept a competent pack of underlings to make sure the business was always handled one way or another. After Shayna's issues started, he went directly to Switzerland to hide her mountain of jewels. He knew she would need it not only for the issues, but also for her future, so she could have a leg or two to stand on. He knew she was fine. He knew this girl all his life and knew she didn't have it in her. So Petey went to her defense and never abandoned her. He met his first, what the hell just happened? Just sort of, my mouth was getting away with me, and not in the Kipwinger way. He met his first and only wife when touring with the band in Brazil. Blanca and cousin Petey were married 3 years after meeting so she could come to the U.S., but ended up together for 12 years before divorcing because Petey's first wife was Argentinian, I believe. Nuri, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful girl. Man, did he fuck that right up. They may have stayed together if it wasn't for the drunken indiscretion with another woman after a fight. He argued to Blanca that people pay good money for that in Vegas, and he was desperately sorry. Blanca left, and Petey was stalked for many years by the side piece after, even going as far as in the belly of the closet of the band's plane. It was chaos at 10,000 feet. After Shayna's issues, they got back to their small town together for some much needed recovery. Okay, let's go down to Nicola Inez. Real name Nicola Onyx Perchecki Inez. That's my girl. That's my Andrea. Petite, brown-eyed, doe-looking beauty with more tattoos than most men. Her open-minded parents began allowing her to get the tattoos on her 16th birthday, and she habitually collected them since. Born in Seattle, she moves to New York City with her family after her Czechoslovakian immigrant hippie parents begin Yellow Road Records. It becomes the most coveted label for new and prominent bands. Her father and mother primped Nicola to take over the company all her life, and on her 21st birthday, they turned the label over to her so they can run around India and Moroccan communes. She sees them periodically and talks to them daily, seeking their magic ear for advice, even though they know she's better than them at the job. Nicola was the first label to hear both Jonesy James and Nancy Pants, signing them for the biggest bonuses in rock history. She falls for a few years she falls for a few years younger than her bass player, Gunk, becoming his muse, lover, child's mother, and best friend. She refuses his proposals and promises of marriage, knowing he could never be faithful. No musician could. Independent, creative, and gypsy at heart like her parents, she herself makes her life as easy and posh as possible, raising her son with Gunk in New York City and a small Greek town. She believes that Shayna is and tirades and destroys her publicly. It puts her and Gunk at odds for the first time. After the turnabout, Nicola hands over the years of frozen profits from Nancy Pants to Shayna in an effort to make amends. She would re-sign the band and help them rediscover their musical greatness and passion. So, woohoo! So, okay, there's kind of the, the character outline. There's one more, but I'm trying to decide if I want to keep the character in the book, because I hate him in my real life. Anyway, so now you're going to kind of find out a little bit more of what I wasn't saying in the character outline. So this is the first few pages of the first chapter of the original And She Was. The clink of the bars behind her made chills run down her spine. Looking around her newly confined concrete world, she stifled back the tears. Her body was trembling as she slowly moved to the back of her hollow cell. Sitting on the still shelf they considered a bed next to a threadbare thin mattress and a blanket. She brought her knees to her chest and hid her face in her pale arms. Her once golden Mediterranean tan was now just a memory. She had not seen more than 1 hour of daylight since this whole thing started. Since the second she had been arrested, life as she knew it had quickly disappeared. How was this going to be the rest of her life? She was only 28 years old. How did she end up here? Prisoner number 1795668 MSC at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility in Bedford, New York. The M stood for murder, and SC for solitary confinement, due to the high-profile nature of not only her case, but also her. For she wasn't always just a number in baggy orange scrubs. No, she was once, not so long ago, Shayna Stevens, notorious teenage groupie turned rock and roll's most audacious frontwoman. As the lead singer of Nancy Pants, the all-female bad girl band, Shayna had had it all: fame, money, drugs, haute couture, world travel, private planes, millions of fans, and of course, eventually, the ultimate rock star husband. But that rock and roll husband is why she was here. She knew she didn't belong in this prison for the rest of her life, and somewhere in the few dreams she had in the last 16 months, so did her dead husband. Because I've done that episode on the dreams I would have, like about Steve Jones or, John that came and visited me in my dreams and stuff like that. So kind of putting that in there as well. But after one hung jury in a second trial, here she was, bad hair, wafer thin, and completely aware that it did not matter how tough she had been as a badass rock singer. She was just still that sheltered little girl from the small town. The guard stopped at the door and slid open the hatch at the top. "Dinner," he said before he shoved a tray through the slot. Shayna bolted to the door, knowing that if she didn't catch the tray before it came all the way through the door, she would be eating her slop off the floor. Maybe it wasn't Mr. Chow's in London, but it was the only meal Shayna would have all day. She had spent most of it being transferred from courthouse jail in New York City to her new country estate, as she liked to call it in her head. If she had anything besides this tray of turkey, beans, and bread, she still tried to hang on to her sense of humor. It was all she had left of her once glorious, privileged life. Shayna's fame turned out to be an eerie isolation and hatred once she was brought up on the charges. The album sales stopped and concerts were canceled in furious fashion. The millions that had not been spent on the best lawyers was still tied up in her and Jonesy's joint account. Her wreck of a greedy mother-in-law had had the assets frozen once the account was found resting privately in Switzerland. Not having any ready money had taken care of the houses in New York, London, and Barcelona. Her album royalties had been seized by the IRS until they did a full investigation, and the fans had scattered like cockroaches in the daylight. Fortunately, she had hidden her jewelry, mostly apologies from her indiscriminate husband, away with the only person she could trust. Still, one by one, God seemed to take away her life she had built with her own voice and sex appeal. But no one, not even God, could deprive her of her sense of humor, nor could they take away what she knew was the truth. That Shada Stevens did not do what she was convicted of. She simply, because I'm still kind of keeping that a little secret, she simply went to bed one night. She simply went to bed after another night of reconciliation next to her bad boy husband, and when she woke up, her world was changed. A heart attack was the initial ruling until the coroner's report came back and reported cyanide as the culprit. So I think you guys kind of are guessing what this is. This is really a metaphor because after John died, I felt so much in a fucking prison and I felt so isolated away from myself. And I felt so that this was going to follow me around. So this is kind of why I have her in jail. You know, why I start off with this. Because really from the second book, I wanted to start off in the reality version that I've started. It does start off with this. I feel stifled. I'm going to be pigeonholed to this for the rest of my life. It's like being in a prison. So when I was writing the fictional version based on my reality, this was kind of the metaphor that I came up with. Okay. Where am I? And that was how this all started after one night. A night she had lived many times over. Now the nights she would live over and over considered mostly of a corner shower before bed, dank and darkness at 9 p.m., and a small solitary flashlight that she had held in her mouth as she pored over detail after detail of the coroner's report, the crime scene investigation, and testimony, hoping to find something, anything that could get her out of the cell. Shada had already gone through one breakdown when she was first booked into the county jail in New York City and knew she would have yet another adjustment to prison. The jail would seem like a vacation in Ibiza compared to this place. Prison would offer only certain visitors and times. More time spent alone in a cell getting out with the other high-profile prisoners, mostly here on some sort of murder or attempted murder raps. For a few hours a week, and notoriety that would only put a price on her head among the real criminals that called Bedford home. For the first time in her life, Shada was alone, completely isolated from anyone around her. Even if she had been found not guilty, she would have still lived in a shameful prison that no one else would ever understand. Either way, she was caged. And not that Shada's based on me either. Shada's just has a lot of my reality put into her in metaphors or in actual instances. All right. But Shada did not want to think about all that right now. She just wanted to choke down her processed food and think of simpler times, of the small town life she had left behind so long ago. She finished what she could of her tray, slid it back through the slot in the door, and unrolled the shitty mattress. Laying down her head, Shada fought off the tears by banging her hand on the cinder block wall. She could feel her knuckles getting bare and bloody, but she didn't care. She needed to know she could still feel. That the numbers taking over her being was not all she would ever be again. Her hand slipped down the wall, and to her side as Shayna accidentally fell asleep in her new confines. Maybe this was all a nightmare, and she would wake up back to her old life. Hell, Shayna would kill to wake up in that old New York City squat she ran away to when she was just 16. So there you go. There's the rest of it. That's what I'm reading of. So, like I said, kind of put your comments. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you would prefer this version or if you would prefer the reality version. Like I said previously in the last one, I really do kind of like this version because it really allows me to be creative. It allows me to be a little more open about some things that I was going through emotionally after John, before John with other musicians and stuff like that. I don't like to show my emotions or the really truly intimate bits of my life with these guys. So this kind of does allow me a little more to be open and to really share that side of my groupie experience with you guys. So, but all right, there you guys go. Tell me what you think down in the comments. Just be nice. I know I'm not a perfect writer or anything like that, but I am kind of really proud of what I was, creating with this, just out of my own head. So kind of happy about it. So be nice. But all right, you guys, and thank you as always for getting to the end of the episode with me. You guys rock. I cannot tell you how much I just simply adore our family. That just words will never ever encompass it. And for those of you that are just here, just finding me, not sure if you want to subscribe, go hit that subscription, become a member, hit the bells, because there's a lot to see here on Cocktails and Rocktails. So go down, binge watch, tell me other episodes you would like to hear about, other musicians that I haven't talked about yet. Feel free to ask any question down in the comments, because I always answer, and I may make a new episode. I get inspired by you guys all the time because you guys fucking rock. So all right, again, hit that subscribe, hit my bells, and we'll see you next time on Cocktails and Rocktails. Cheers, big ears.